We're on the border and the end of the COVID-era restrictions, Title 42. I want to welcome in former Deputy Director of ICE, Ron Vitiello. Thank you, as always, for being with us. Okay, so I think everybody agrees that extending Title 42 would be a Band-Aid, but do you think that that's necessary right now? What would it do?
Well, it would give the Border Patrol a slight advantage with the number of people who qualify to be expelled under Title 42. It allows their workflow to be shorter. So getting someone into custody, making sure they're safe and they qualify for Title 42 expulsion, sending them back home or sending them to Mexico. They can do that within the hour, depending on logistics, depending on workload. If they move into the Title 8, which is through the traditional border enforcement authority, then that takes several hours to get somebody through the system and ready for some disposition. And the big problem we're having is that people know it's ending. People know that the system is overwhelmed, including detention. And so that taking that tool off the table will just make things worse because people will not have the deterrence effect of being sent back.
So what's the downside if Title 42 were to extend for another couple of years, give the federal government more time?
Well, it's temporary. It was always temporary. It's based on public health. If Congress acts, well, then they can extend it for as long as they write a law that the president will sign or get through the Senate. So it's not necessarily a bad idea, but it's a Band-Aid, really. It's a temporary situation. And I think it would be subject to scrutiny by the courts if it was challenged. And it has been challenged by the special interest groups out there.
The other thing that you mentioned, and it points to clarity, is that many of those crossing the border have said, well, the border, when Title 42 lifts, it's an open door, right? We can get across. The messaging on that has been wrong. What needs to be done to rectify that going through the proper channels is what the federal government wants people to do? Anything otherwise will be handled differently. Who's in charge of that messaging?
Well, the secretary, the people on the ground there, political leadership, border state senators, representatives, et cetera. Yeah, so the statements about the border being closed are incorrect or imprecise or worse. And what's happening is people are seeing with their own eyes large numbers of people coming into the United States illegally, crossing the border, some not being encountered by Border Patrol at all or any law enforcement. And so they come into the United States at will. Lots of people who are coming into custody at CBP after crossing illegally are being released in large numbers. And what that does is that encourages other people to come and to take that dangerous journey. And so the messaging has been all over the map. The smugglers will take advantage of it. But pretending the border's closed when thousands of people are making it into the country and thousands more are being released from U.S. custody and thousands more are not being seen by law enforcement, it's just not factual.
And how bad do you think it's going to get based on what you're hearing from your sources come Thursday?
We know that there are thousands and thousands of people in each border community that are waiting for the 11th. They're waiting for the sunset because they don't want to face being expelled back home or being expelled into Mexico. The Border Patrol Union put out stats yesterday that the average for 24 hours illegal entry is 7,700. And so if there's thousands waiting for Thursday, that number is going to increase dramatically, significantly. So you could be in the 10 or 12,000 range. And at 7,000 a day, let me just tell you as a former operator, that overwhelms the system. There's not enough agents. There's not enough processing terminals. There's not enough floor space in facilities. Even though they've been augmented, it will be very quickly overwhelmed, as it is now in some places.
Is it inadequate, the 1,500 National Guard members that were sent to the border to relieve agents so they could work the front lines? Is that going to do anything? Is that enough to prepare for the numbers that you're talking about?
Well, those brave Americans will go down and help the Border Patrol in non-operational roles. They'll monitor sensors. They'll do some of the logistics. They'll refine the intelligence. That's additive to the problem that the Border Patrol faces. That may put some agents back out on patrol. But the problem here is the policy. The problem here is how the law is operationalized, and this administration's refusal to put back into place policies that brought us to 45-year lows in activity of illegal migration across the southwest border. And so that's what needs to happen. You need to lower the temperature. You need to lower the flow so that you can start to refine the operational picture. But until that's done, 1,500 troops they'll be appreciative to have it. I, as a taxpayer, I'm glad that they're sending additional help, but it will not fix the problem in any dramatic way.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.